So, you may be wondering what these things are. This thing is. I just kind of put it together, even made a small little square thing instead of a circle thing. It's for lever, like a slidey lever, because I don't think I'll ever be able to make a rotating lever. But I'll get into that in a sec. What I should have done is make it so the ship, these buttons, the movement buttons, are toggle. Yeah, there we are. Now I should be able to rotate around. You'll probably stop. No, stop. Whoa. That's interesting. I might have to add an extra button. One for toggle, or one for when the thing's triggered, and one for when it's not. Just so I don't have that. Stop. Okay, there. Right, and also there's one important bug I think that I've just kind of noticed. So if I click space, everything's moving. This is the thing that's moving, and this is the thing that gets rotated. So when I press this button here, everything rotates around that point. So I think I need two different transforms. I need a transform that will be moved around, and the space transform that needs to be rotated. And the space transform will be in the center of the map. So movement will be, it'll move this. And that way I should still have the nice proper accurate rotation thing. Okay, so what I'm doing here is I have begun trying to figure out where the bug is. That bug being when I click on the button, on the toggle button, it is only using one type of interaction. So I had to create a new type of interaction. Instead of press when it's triggered, it's hold. So am I holding the button down? Am I not holding the button down? From there, I also need to change how the interactions work in the play interact script. As you can see, I'm just trying to test some things, and while I thought the bug was fixed, I realised that on the left side, the holding down the button or pressing the buttons and toggling them, that's fixed. But now holding the buttons down does not, it's not fixed either. Well, no. So I just make sure to check that it properly stops interacting when I let go of the interact button. Did I say that the interact button was the left mouse button? I quite like that. For some reason the left mouse button is way... I feel like you interact easier and faster instead of just pressing E. Okay. Let's try that out. Oh, that's the floor. Yeah, there we go. Well, this is going to be an interactable lever. So I'm going to just create a new one. So, interactable lever. Hooray! So here, what I'm doing is I'm checking for any similarities between the button and the lever. From there, I create a new function called setProgress. This takes in the position where the player interact raycast hits, and then from there I get an inverse alert between the start and the end position on the lever. From there, that inverse alert then turns into the lever progress. So I then have a 0 to 1 scale. I do try and faff about with some of the gizmos, but it doesn't end up working. I end up scrapping it later on. However, from the lever progress, I then create some materials, of which has a material progress, which is the lever progress multiplied with the amount of materials in an array. From there, I round it to int, and then whenever the material progress number changes, I update the colour material, the red glow underneath the lever handle. I update that. That changes between each index on the material array. And this is set with the material progress. I also lerp the lever handle so it smoothly goes to where you click. So you don't have to click and hold, you can just click on a spot and it'll just move to it. I claimed that I didn't know how to make a rotational lever. I do that eventually. It's very similar to what I've got. In that case, it is literally just, instead of lerping from start to end, I lerp from a start to end rotation and I just move between the two, which is something I should have done as well, so that I could just do both. I also had a couple of bugs where whenever I clicked the lever it would just be inverted, so I click the bottom of the lever and the lever handle goes up to the top. I'm currently setting the material progress stuff. To check if the material progress was different, I used a temp version that just, if it was different to the material one, update the material and then set the temp to the new material progress. That should be fine. Should be. Okay, let's see. Red, orange, yellow, weird green, green. Ship controls. I kind of need a script that takes in all the information from the buttons and levers and piles it all into one big thing. So what I proceed to do is link the lever to the ship controller, which is a new script. Originally, I planned it to control everything about the ship, so whenever you press a button, it would link to the ship controller and apply movement that way. That didn't work. I'm pretty sure either I try it here, or I try it way later on, and I try it at least another 2 times, but it never works. I eventually did get it to work, but that's way later on, and I'm annoyed that I wasted so much time trying to figure it out when really it was just a pointless endeavour. So I ended up settling with just making the lever move the ship, or at least change the speed, lerp it from its lerp from 0 to its top speed, and I make the buttons just move depending on that. So now I should move until I move this. And I won't rotate either until I do that. So I can have some very gentle, slow rotations. Or I can have really fast ones. I want to add a the custom light from my... I really like this. It looked quite nice. That doesn't look nice at all though, probably because I'm not using the right thing. It should be just a default sprite. Yeah, look at that. Looks nice. So here I add my custom light from the hotel. I basically spoke quite in depth about it in there. I do make changes later on, very important changes, but right now I re-added it because I really liked it and I thought it was useful, and it is. I do very much use the functionality that I gave it later on. What I'm doing here is I'm just trying to set things up, and I also give the ship some nice looking headlights, even though volumetric stuff doesn't look right in space because there's no dust, which I do remove eventually. I also try and add a custom look to it, see if I could make it look a little bit better. That doesn't work. I do have a solution later on, and I do actually end up stopping this recording prematurely so I could just focus on stuff and not just waste a bunch of disk space or space on my computer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fast forward to when I actually get there, and I'll talk about that. Okay, so what have I done since? Absolutely nothing. I've been trying to have a look around. I can't find anything to do with the weird thing, so I just kind of put it back and just made it a lot shorter. By just doing that's interior lighting. By simply just adding a range, so I can just I gotta get something really big or really small. Yeah, that's probably the best I will get for a while. I'll have a look for actual volumetric stuff for something later on, I don't know. Right now I'm fine with this. I am, however, going to just rotate these off to the side a little bit. Yeah, because it will cross eventually. So I'll do that. Because then they're not pointing on the same direction, and we'll just... It's a weird effect, especially when you walk like this, but for something temporary, it'll be fine. Oh yeah, all of these can be rotated like that. Looks a bit weird. -1, 0. 9. Cool, so now I have very, very small little line renderers that dotted about a little bit that are floating in the air. Perfect. Who else doesn't want a line like this? Engines, because when I have cameras, there will be some pointing at the engines. So I will need to have a visual for that. It's not actually going to be flames. It's just going to be it's just going to be a basic cube that kind of grows and shrinks. So a bunch of cubes on each face except the one facing inwards, because that would just look weird. So in ship controller, I will have to try and figure out how to put a direction on here. Okay, so the way I go about this is I try and set a direction from the buttons. That way I can apply said direction to these little flame cubes that I created that will grow in size. They're all facing, they all grow in the same direction. I just change the rotation of where they're all facing. And what I'm trying to do here is I'm just trying to create a velocity, or I eventually do create a ship velocity to use for later. But here I'm just trying to figure out how I get a direction. And it ain't working well. However, when I do figure things out, what I'll do is I will set I'll create a bunch of arrays for forward, backward, left, right, up, down. Left and right being independent because there's only one each. And from there, depending on which direction the the movement is going in, I grow or shrink the appropriate flames, just to give the idea that it's moving. That was actually way easier to explain than I thought it was. I thought it was going to take way longer, but it took me a little bit of brainstorming to get around and figure out, but once I got it, it worked and it was nice. I didn't do the rotational stuff though, because I wasn't sure yet, and I wanted to just celebrate the small victory that I achieved here, and worry about that later, which I did. It does kind of bug out though when I use the rotation. It does actually move, or the flames do shrink and grow depending on that, which is really funny, but yeah. I would like to also add on that I use math.absolute, which turns a negative number into a positive number, which is how I'm able to get some weird backwards effects. I also clamp them so that it stays between it. So I clamp, for the positive one, I clamp it from 0 to 1. It's pretty easy. But for the negative values, I clamp it from -1 to 0, and then use math.absolute to make it positive. And that way I actually get the effect I need. There we go. Up's perfect now. And down. Oh, that's cool. So if I just stop one... Oh wait, if I have both of them, it doesn't do anything. Nice. And so I start with the weirdest jump cut I've ever done. I decided to have a look at how player movement or input works, and I got nowhere with that, but I did have an idea. What if I, instead of just forcing a vector 3 to have a bunch of numbers being edited all the time, what if I made a input vector thingy, whatever I called it, called ship movement, that takes in each individual movement value with positive y, positive x, stuff like that, for movement and rotation, and then apply that to the movement vectors in the ship controller, and guess what? It works. I'm very happy I did this. It looks like an absolute mess, but it works, so I'm going to keep it. Forward, backward, oh, backward, left, right, up, down. I guess sometimes the simplest solution is just the best one. It's the opposite sides. It's the opposite sides. How? I've already paired. The movement ones are paired to work with that. You know, like in the same directions. This completely defies that. Get out of here. Midnight calls. That's a good time to stop. I'm stopping. I'm stopping.